Hello, welcome back to our second documentary. We watched Joshua, Teenager versus Superpowers, and yeah, let's just get right into it.
So, the story starts all the way back in 1997 when Hong Kong was handed over to China by the British. China agreed to a 50-year democracy deal where Hong Kong would get to be its own sort of city-state, but just inside of China.
And that was because they've been Hong Kongers, that's what they call themselves. They consider themselves separate from China because for the longest time that they were under British rule, they had more westernized political views, which is why they were so used to these more democratic values that contrast with China's political views.
So China, although they agreed to that, they didn't really keep their promise because right off the bat they started to implement changes, and I would say the most notable is the one, it's called National Education. Yeah, where they would alter their education system to prioritize nationalism, Chinese nationalism.
And among this, what happened was, so Joshua, the documentary starts off with a really good speech of his where he's talking about how it falls to his generation to change what they're implementing upon them. And so he's just saying that rather than sitting back and letting it happen, they should fight back. And that's how we start off his story. Starts off with him talking to his family like a regular kid, and then we see him beginning to start protesting, handing out flyers and other pamphlets that are talking about what he wants to start as a movement.
It's kind of I found it kind of interesting how the documentary started with that scene.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't start, it introduced his speech before, it was 1,500 people went to go protest.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with that before his childhood, because we get introduced to him when he's 14. He founds this club called Scholarism. But why does the documentary choose to start with that scene?
I feel like the contradiction was actually a really vital point of the documentary because it shows his progression. It starts off right off the bat showing Joshua as this figure and idol of this movement, but we go back immediately almost into this family life where he's just talking about papers in school and his GPA. It just shows that even though he is giving these speeches to thousands of people, that at his heart he is still a kid that's trying to figure it out.
I was thinking that they used it more like a hook.
Mm-hmm.
They gathered their attention and they were whoa, how did they get to this point?
Yeah.
And then they introduced Joshua, they introduced how it happened, and
It could also be fuel for motivation, because I think a lot of the documentary focuses on motivating people to support pro-democratic values, and I think that showing that anybody can do it, gives people the ability to think they can too.
Well, another thing is, throughout this whole documentary, there were two main events, right? It was one where, where the rally was, they occupied... Yeah, the umbrella movement, and then the national education one, and the national education one succeeded. They were able to get it, they were able to have the government alter it to it's the schools can choose if they want to implement it or not. And against the Chinese government, that's a victory because
But obviously, it took a lot of hard work. They had to go on a hunger strike. They had to 4 days? They waited in the Civic Square.
Yeah. That wasn't the hunger strike, but that was the national education one. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. Go on.
It kind of surprised me of how rapidly they gained success and how they got the movement rolling, because I'm sure it was much more difficult than the documentary made it seem. There were definitely nights where he doubted himself, where he didn't know. Oh, something else that's been stuck in my mind was how he was able to get it done. How I'm sure we all know how scary the Chinese government is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because throughout the thing, they were first off, they used police forces and they pepper spray, tear gas, but then there was a scene where it talked about these book publishers that got kidnapped. They lived in Hong Kong, which was separate from China, kidnapped, brought to China, and then I don't know, they're probably dead now.
Most likely, we knew about it. But all these factors sort of kept motivating people, which is why actually the Chinese government decided to take a step back and let it die out on its own. They thought that rather than giving these people fuel, that it would die out. And I think that might have been one of those moments that Joshua started doubting himself. But he kept fighting through.
I'm not really on. What if I get kidnapped if I say this? But it's like, I feel like Joshua was on the right side, you know? I'm not, I'm not going to pick sides because I want to go to bed tonight. But, yeah, I thought that was pretty smart by the government. Because, like, if they were to send more police, there would have been more people. Like, it would have just motivated more people to come out. But they kind of just, like, starved them out. They, like, didn't take action. So people just sat there for, like, 2 months. And then they got, like, unmotivated and they went home. And that's how they...
Speaking of starving them out, the vocabulary in this documentary was crazy. There was a lot of bias. Unlike our last documentary, where most of it was educational, informational only, this one had more bias towards Joshua and pro-democratic values. And I'm guessing it's because it's targeted to a more Western audience, so they're trying to formulate it to us. But they really painted China as, like, the antagonistic figure. They were saying, like, we want to starve the movement. I mean, starve is never a good term to use. Or they were saying they were pepper spraying and, using the term umbrella movement, symbolizing, like, protection from this government. I think all of it really made it seem like China was the biggest antagonist towards them.
Yeah, I mean, like, the title of the thing is, like, teenager versus superpower, like...
It shows these overwhelming odds that Joshua just has no chance against, but he still goes up against them.
He was able to secure victory, although, like, the second one, like the umbrella movement, it ultimately wasn't successful.
Yeah.
It kind of opened the eyes of everybody. They're like, whoa, he could really do this,
Okay. Thinking about the AP essay, I said that the biggest themes would be social and political justice and youth leadership, or...
like youth activism. I kind of like youth activism as, one of the underlying themes. I mean, prior to this, I've actually never heard of Joshua Wong.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard of, like, Greta Thunberg or, like, Malala, but I don't know, maybe they censored his name, or I don't know, but there's not that much recognition.
I think it said that in the documentary, right? Like, when you look him up, he doesn't come up.
Yeah, like the Chinese government censored his name on, like, their social media, but, like, the rest of the world, I don't know, maybe, but I feel like there definitely should be more, like, more people should know about this.
Yeah. Also because he resonates within a younger audience as well. He is young, I mean.
Like, he's 28 now, but...
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So some evidence in the film that I would use for social justice might be showing how he wanted to run for, like, part of the, what was it called?
The Demosisto.
The
Demosistos? Like yeah.
Demosistos. And yeah, I could say that, after all these trials and tribulations that he ran for that, and he was still fighting for social justice despite these overwhelming odds.
Well, he wasn't quite old enough to run. Like, he was planning to run, but one of the members in his group, his name, Nathan was old enough, and he won, and he secured a spot. Like, they told us that towards a spot in, like, the legislative council. But unfortunately, China disqualified them and didn't let them participate.
Mm-hmm. I guess that could line up with persistence and perseverance as well as a major theme, because no matter what, even though they got disqualified, they were still trying to gain support and still doing everything in their power to change the ways that were being implemented and forced upon them. So I think that was pretty great. Another thing, evidence. Okay, so we were just talking about, on an off break, we were just talking about how cultural divides could work, but then he brought up age divides. And I was thinking how this documentary, like, as I said before, it focuses a lot on pro-democratic values, but it doesn't really explore, like, broader perspectives, like the younger people who didn't support his plan. And I was just thinking, wait, I lost my train of thought. I was about to cook, though.
So throughout the documentary, Joshua met with the chief executive of Hong Kong, like CY Leung, like a couple times, and he didn't really take him seriously. Like, he viewed him as like a troublemaker, like a little goon, like he was just a little kid, and didn't take him seriously until he was able to get 120,000 people at one protest, and then like 800,000 at another, and they were primarily students. So it's not like communist versus like democracy. It's more like young versus old.
Really?
Like one generation versus the views of one versus the views of another.
Then again, that's what I was gonna say. Then again, this documentary has the pro-democratic values, but they don't show the views and perspectives of other people that don't support it. So we could say that in a way it's young versus old, but we don't really know what's going on there because, again, this documentary is so catered for a Western viewpoint that we don't exactly know like what either side is really thinking unless we actually go there and are participating in their activism and their protests and rallies and stuff like that. So that's why I was saying that a more broader perspective would be a cultural divide or a political divide.
Would you go protest?
Yeah, probably.
If this was in if this was
here,
here, you would go protest?
Yes. I feel like having autonomy is like the biggest thing in life. Like you cannot let other people control you. And I think that's exactly what they were thinking.
That is true. Because that's what like America's all about.
Yeah. And imagine like we've been living in a democratic society for so long. Like we get to make our own choices, but imagine like one day someone's like, no, you have to be all about America now. Like you have to listen to me.
Yeah,
like,
and that's exactly
that's
exactly what Hong Kong's going through.
Exactly. So it's like nobody's gonna go through that change easily.
I mean, I'd be kind of scared if they brought out some police.
Yeah, they did do that.
I'd probably go home.
At one point, I mean, there was I forget what it was, but there was protesters, and they thought it got violent, and so then they were throwing tear gas.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
There was a scene. He sprayed the pepper spray into their eyes. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that happens here, and I mean, we still persevere. That's like the American spirit. That's what I'm saying. Like, their protest. This documentary was so catered to us because America is always rooting for like the underdog to win, which is why like it was like, it relied so much on emotion rather than reason, this documentary, because it was just showing us how like he's still going to fight against China even though like these people are getting kidnapped and they're getting tear gassed and hurt. Like there's no like odds where he can actually truly make a change on his own, but he does it anyway.
Would you say that they're trying to make like an allusion to like, like the underdog, like David versus Goliath, like this whole document? Would you try to like would that be an underlying theme?
Yeah, I mean, when you watch an action movie, you see like this scrawny kid beating up big bullies. Like you're like,
that's like butt. That's what we want to see.
That's what we want to see, and I think that's why it like this documentary. When you were texting me saying like this was motivating you, it was motivating me too. Like you feel that support and you sympathize with his values.
One last question to the filmmakers is how did you guys show like civilian phone footage you could see because the camera angle would be like be straight up,
but then a steady one,
right, and it'd be like in super good quality and
they got him arrested just for the video.
That's what I'm saying. Like, did they reenact it, or because I feel like if I was Joshua, I'd be a little traumatized. I wouldn't want to reenact that.
Yeah, you think he's traumatized?
No, I think Josh was built for it. I think he's like really wired into. He's not. He even said in the documentary. Damn.
Take your time,
he even said in the documentary that he wasn't afraid to. What did she say?
Okay, baby, I'm home.
Okay. Anyway, he said that he wasn't like afraid to go missing, and I was like, whoa. But
that's somebody committed to his beliefs, I suppose. But he's not just doing it for himself anymore. He's doing it for everybody in Hong Kong.
Well, I mean, so even from the beginning, he was like, instead of worrying about my grades and stuff, I want to bring value to, or I want to bring change to something that I really value. So from the start, it was for Hong Kong. It wasn't for himself.
Yeah, I think that's very noble. He's a very noble kid.
But like,
was.
Yeah, it was. He's like gone now.
He's in jail.
Okay, so I did extra research on him, and they brought him to jail in 2021, and we haven't heard of him since.
You think I should write him a letter?
I think he's dead. Because all of his friends, all of the people that we met in the movie, Agnes, Derek, David, the fat kid, was his name David? Yeah, they all moved. Agnes is in Canada.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they all went somewhere else. They went to college and stuff. Cause I mean, it was kind of like their late teens to early 20s. So now they're all
Grown.
now they're all like late 20s, early 30s. So it was like the film was made in 2017. It was like almost 10 years ago. So thank you guys for watching. Wait. Welcome back, guys. This is our documentary film assignment.
All right.
And we watched Joshua, Teenager versus Superpower.
Yes. Let's start off with the summary. So.
You ain't watched the film? That's insane, bro. Don't worry, I got y'all. I'll do the summary. So it all starts. It all starts back in 1997 when Hong Kong was handed over.
Bro, you know what you remind me of?
Oh. It all starts back in 1990s.
The guy who like caught the ball, he was like, "Hey, ladies, you okay?"
But a referee. Swore. We gotta cut it all out now. Ready?
Okay, we're gonna be talking about Joshua, Teenager versus Superpowers.
I love that movie. 10 out of 10.
So, alright, I just give.